Hello and welcome to our today's lesson. My name is Adhiambo Quinta. We are going to look at Mean Girth Concept or the centerline concept in construction industry. We have two objectives. We have two lesson objectives. Let's begin by defining the mean girth of a building, and it is the centerline, perimeter or circumference of the building which describes length of the building. We have two situations where the mean girth concept can be used. One, when we are calculating or measuring items in the substructure works, for example, in foundation walling. Two, in substructure works, for example, when we are measuring the external walling. We have important terms that we need to look at. The first one, we have external dimensions, and these ones are dimensions taken from the external surfaces of the building's walls. We have internal dimensions. These ones are taken from the internal surfaces of the building walls. We have corners. These ones are interconnections or points where two non-parallel walls meet. In this diagram, we have an illustration of external dimensions, centerline, and internal dimensions. The outer line in red represents the external dimensions. The middle dotted line in black represents the centerline. The internal line, which is in blue, represents internal dimensions. When calculating mean girth, depending on circumstances, we can either use internal dimensions basis or external dimensions basis. In our example, we are going to use internal dimensions basis, and when we are using internal dimensions basis, for each internal corner we add half times the thickness of the wall to internal perimeter or internal girth for us to get the mean girth. Here we have an image of a wall in 3D. We have our example. In the next slide, we have a simple floor plan with an external walling of an internal width of 6 meters, external length of 15 meters, and the thickness of the wall is 225 millimeters. We are asked to calculate the mean girth of the wall. Let's look at the figure. Here it is. We have our external length, that is from this point to this point, as 15 meters as given. We have our internal length, that is from this point to this point, as 6 meters. The midline is our center line. We have the thickness of the wall here as 225 millimeters or 0.225 meters. Let's take this corner and have a look at it in detail. Here, if we transfer the internal corner to the center line on this side, we have it here. If we want to get to the corner of the center line, here we need to add half the thickness of the wall to our internal width. And if we transfer again this the corner of this internal corner to our center line, we have it here. For us to get to the corner of our center line, we'll need to add again half the thickness of the wall to the internal length. That is why we are saying when we are using internal dimension as a basis for calculating mean girth, for each corner we are adding 2 times half the thickness of the wall. Now let's get to our calculations. We have the external length, but we don't have the internal length. So we will begin by calculating the internal length by subtracting 2 times the thickness of the wall from 15 meters. After doing that, after getting the internal length, we calculate internal perimeter by using the usual formula for finding perimeter of a rectangle, that is 2 into length plus width. That will give us the internal perimeter. That is from this point all the way to this point, to this point, to this point, back to this point. After finding the internal perimeter, we have 4 corners: this point, this point, this point, and this point. And we've said for each corner we are adding 2 times half the thickness of the wall. That will give us our mean girth. Here is our calculations. We have our external length given as 15 meters. We have less the brickwork, which we get as 0.45, that is 2 times the thickness of the wall. If we subtract, we get 14.55 meters as our internal length. Our internal width is 6.00 meters. Now our internal perimeter is 2 into length plus width, which gives us 41.10 meters. If we add, this represents now the number of corners, and for each corner we've said we are adding 2 times the thickness of 2 times half the thickness of the wall. Half the thickness of the wall is 0.1125. If we do this calculation, we are getting 0.90 meters. We add this to our internal perimeter, we get our mean girth as 42.00 meters. In conclusion, we have said when we are using internal dimensions basis, mean girth equals to internal perimeter plus, for each corner we are adding 2 times half the thickness of the wall. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for listening. Feel free to give your feedback in the comments section.